Hello and welcome to Heirloom Garden, and I'm excited to share with you today all the varieties of seeds I'm growing in 2024, as well as recapping some varieties I grew in 2023 that I'm going to be growing again. And before we get into all of that, I just wanted to back up a little bit and mention why I grow, because I think there's a real risk that we can fall into the trap of trying to grow everything in every variety when that might actually not be the best to meet our needs, to meet our limitations. So let's talk a little bit about why I grow. And the number one reason I grow is for culinary value. So I especially like tomatoes and peppers with great heirloom culinary value, something that you can't get at the supermarket, and something that just offers an experience unlike any other. So for me, that's definitely tomatoes, peppers. I also love butterhead and romaine lettuces because I'm a big salad eater. And I was also blown away by the quality of the cruciferous vegetables, particularly the broccoli I grew last year. I wasn't expecting it to be so much better than what I got at the store, but it really was. And so I feel like incorporating these homegrown vegetables can really kick up the amount of pleasure we can gain from our cooking. And if you have an Epicurean bent like me, you're going to really enjoy the varieties I have to present to you today. The next reason I grow is, and it's kind of attached to the last, is for rarity. Because if we can grow things that we can't get at the store and aren't commonly available, that's just adding to the value of our garden, particularly for me because I love to cook. So for me, that's again growing heirloom tomatoes, the best beefsteaks and slicers that you simply can't get at the market, and you might be hit and miss when it comes to the farmers markets. But also the rare and exotic Aji Pineapple peppers, which I don't think you can find available anywhere. A lot of people have reported that they have a fantastic fruity, acidic, fruity, floral, fragrant nuances, and I'm really excited to try those today. And I'm also excited to try these Asian heirloom root vegetables like turnips, radishes, also some varieties of eggplants that are really rare varieties that are only available in Asian markets, as well as some French heirloom melons, which I think are going to be, which I've heard are just exquisite. Of course, French people and Japanese people take their melons very, very seriously. So I'm really excited to try to grow my own of those varieties that are so difficult to find. And on the other hand, it's important to consider what is easy to find. And for me, that's winter squashes and summer squashes. I did grow a bunch of summer squash last year, and I do find that the quality was good, and I will be growing them again, but I don't find it was an exceptional improvement upon what you can find at the store. And also, we are afflicted nowadays with squash bugs in the PNW. I hear that's actually kind of a new thing for us, but because of the pest pressure with the squash bugs and how easily available they are at the store, I won't be growing any winter squashes. Another consideration I have in choosing these varieties is time. So I don't want to grow anything that requires shelling because it's not worth my time to do all that processing, and that includes peas and beans. And along the same vein, I'm not going to be growing any grains or oil crops because it's just not worth the effort it takes to harvest. So this is not going to be a homesteading channel. This is really a culinary heirloom vegetable garden. I'm also not going to be growing Brussels sprouts because I basically only eat them one time of the year, and that's during the holidays, and they have a really long time to maturity, and they are a large plant, so it has a lot of vulnerability to a lot of pests. Another consideration is really space. So because I have a relatively small garden, I'm growing on just a fraction of the quarter-acre property that I have. I'm not going to be growing any corn, pumpkins, or asparagus. So in particular, I also have really limited space for root vegetables because I have exceptionally rocky soil. It's as if my house was built on an actual riverbed. And for that reason, I have to be really particular with what root vegetables I choose to grow because they simply won't form their nice shapes if they run into rocks in the soil. So I have very limited raised bed space, and I want to dedicate those to only gourmet and fine varieties of carrots, turnips, certain select root vegetables, but I really want to cut out potatoes and onions. And the reason I want to cut out the potatoes and onions in particular also delves into the next reason why I grow, which is for monetary value. I'm sure a lot of us are experiencing the inflation at the supermarkets. So a lot of us are growing for monetary value, and it's certainly a consideration for me. So because potatoes and onions are so inexpensive, and I don't think that there is a huge improvement in quality versus what we can get at the store, although let me know below if you disagree. For that reason, I don't grow potatoes and onions, along with the reason that I mentioned before, because I have really limited space for root vegetables. Other inexpensive things we might want to cut out of our garden if we are very limited on space and time are things like pumpkins, winter squash, which I mentioned also have those pest pressure issues, and also cabbage can be relatively inexpensive, although I may try my hand in just growing a few varieties of that. On the other hand, things that are very expensive include herbs. Herbs have very questionable quality at the grocery store a lot of the time, and they're also extremely overpriced for the value and for the amount that you're getting. And I also find that there's a lot of waste when you buy herbs at the grocery store. So for all those reasons, if you just get started on just growing herbs your first year and maybe a couple varieties of vegetables, that can be an incredible return on your investment for your time and for your effort. Another thing that's expensive at the store that I eat a ton of is sweet peppers. Sweet peppers make it into practically everything that I cook, from Indian to Mexican to Chinese type foods. So sweet peppers are extremely expensive at the store. And while I'm not going to be growing any bell peppers because they have a really long time to maturity and they don't produce a lot of fruits per plant, I do grow a lot of heirloom varieties of sweet peppers that can be used culinarily in very similar ways, but are simply more productive and have a shorter time to maturity. And that's probably why sweet peppers are so expensive at the store. Other things that add great value because they're expensive at the store to your garden could be lacinato kale, romaine lettuce, cucumbers, garlic scrapes, romanescos. Again, dovetailing it into those fine culinary values that command higher prices at the store. So basically my two goals with gardening this year were to expand my selection of tomatoes and peppers because I love them so much, and also to make sure that I have something growing all year round. So I really wanted to eliminate those hungry gaps, those times of the year where I'm not growing anything at all, kind of like right now. So I really wanted to select for a ton of overwintering varieties so that I can extend and prolong my harvest and really make use out of our mild and wet winters. Now, one more area I want to cover before we move on to all the seed varieties are where I buy my seeds, because there's a lot of choices out there these days, but I think there's some seed sellers that really are cut above the rest. And the first one I want to mention is Rare Seeds, also known as Baker Creek, and I would say they are really your best general purpose seed store for classic heirloom vegetables. They have a fine selection. In addition to their classics heirloom vegetable selection, these days they're bringing out a lot of heirloom Asian and Indian varieties that you simply can't find from any other seed seller. So I really respect them for bringing more to the market, and I think that's really important to expand people's palates and introduce them to new things. I think this is the best for beginners, so I spent about $80 on seeds for vegetables between Baker Creek and Botanical Interest last year, and that was all I needed to get me started on my gardening addiction. So I just think they're a great place to start. They cover all your basics, great for beginners. The next place I wanted to mention is Seed Savers. So Seed Savers has a really fantastic selection of heirloom peppers and tomatoes, things you can't find at Baker Creek. They are a nonprofit established in 1975, and they are the nation's largest non-governmental seed bank. And they are really such a legacy, cultural, institutional force in the gardening world. A lot of varieties that we have available to us today, we have them available because of the efforts of Seed Savers to bring together groups of gardeners and really preserve those heritage varieties. And I have a lot of varieties that are just impossible for me to find elsewhere. The next two places I wanted to mention that are great for finding heirloom seeds are Uprising and Adaptive, and they're unique because they sell Pacific Northwest locally adapted strains. And I would say this is the biggest advice I could give you if you're getting started on deciding what you're going to grow, is to look for seed sellers that sell in for your region specifically, because they're going to have strains that are locally adapted to your conditions and really have the best advice on what to grow when and how to sow. So Uprising Seeds is a small organic family-run seed farm, and they really have a rare selection of fine heirloom varieties. They have a fantastic selection of overwintering cauliflowers from Italy that you'll pretty much only find at Uprising. And they have a fantastic selection of rare flower seeds. So I'm really excited to try to grow with them this year. The next I have to mention is another Pacific Northwest locally adapted seed source, and that's Adaptive Seeds. They are a certified organic, open pollinated seed source. And they have really fine, rare brassicas like the Parasibaba broccoli, which is really adapted to our really hot summers. They have early melons for short season growers, which I think could be really great if you're growing more in the northerly Pacific Northwest and you have a much shorter summer season. Here, I think we actually do have a pretty decent growing season for even melons. And they have some rare flowers too. So really excited to try both Uprising and Adaptive Seeds, those locally adapted Pacific Northwest seed sellers. The next source I wanted to mention briefly is True Love. They have a fantastic selection of gourmet varieties, and I think they're just really deeply rooted in the community, farms, and the tradition of passing on unique seed varieties that come from US-based growers. So they are also have a direct to profit sharing model with their growers, again, really focused on serving the local US-based farms, and they have fantastic selections. They have a lot of history with each of their varieties, so really great to recommend True Love. The next seed source I have to recommend is Territorial. So Territorial has, again, a lot of gourmet heirlooms that you won't find elsewhere that I'll be talking about today. But in addition to that, they serve an important purpose of also offering a selection of hybrids. And I don't grow very many hybrids, but I do need hybrids for very specific purposes to serve certain needs I have in my garden. So for example, to have Tiara cabbage, which is a small selection that's more appropriate for my garden. Have Sungold tomatoes, which I grew last year and I just have to grow again. So I really recommend Territorial for their selection and for their hybrids. The next seed source I wanted to mention is Texas Hot Peppers. I think they have the finest and most comprehensive variety of hot, spicy peppers, including some really rare varieties I'm excited to share with you today. And then finally, I want to throw in a good word for botanical interests. Even though I'm not reordering from them, a lot of the things I'm growing this year, I bought with them last year, and they have also a fantastic selection of companion planting flowers. So all in all, I spent about $200 on seeds this year, and I think it's important to think about that, how much we're spending on seeds to make sure that we're really serving ourselves well with our investments. So with all of that said, let's finally get into all the varieties of tomatoes I'm growing this year, starting with our cherry tomatoes, which are some of my favorites. I love to put them in salads. So let's start with the first variety that I picked up new this year, and that is the black cherry tomato. So this is an heirloom with a pretty obscure history. I wasn't able to find out how it came into the market, but it has that sweet, rich, complex umami flavor that's really typical of purple and black tomatoes. And I've heard from many people that this is the finest cherry tomato for flavor, and in particular that it makes a fantastic sauce. It's ready in 65 to 75 days, and it is an indeterminate, which of course I got from Baker Creek. The next variety I have to share with you today is the Risentraube. It is an old German heirloom from the 1800s, and it's really well reputed to have a rich, full tomato flavor with a sherry taste. So it has those vinous, wine-like notes, and it really is reported to have a flavor similar to that of a beefsteak tomato in a cherry tomato package. And the name actually is German for a giant bunch of grapes, which refers to the fact that they grow in clusters of 20 to 40 tomatoes. And that really reminds me of the other red cherry tomato I grew last year, which was the Super Sweet 100, which is of course a hybrid. That one had fantastic productivity, but it didn't really have the complexity of flavor that I was looking for. And so for that reason, I wanted to try another type of red cherry tomato that really had much more complexity, has that heirloom flavor that I'm looking for. So I'm really excited to give the Risentraube a try. It is ready in 75 to 85 days. It's an indeterminate variety, and I got it from Baker Creek. The next variety I'm going to be trying this year is the Sungold tomato. Actually, this is a regrow. I grew it from a nursery start last year, but this is the first time I'm going to be starting it from seed. It is a classic hybrid. Even though it is not an heirloom, I feel like maybe one day it will attain heirloom status. Someone will stabilize the genetics because it is such a classic in the vegetable garden for so many of us. It has that deep, fruity, sweet tart flavor that we're looking for, and a beautiful apricot tangerine color that just adds to the wonderful bouquet of different colors of tomatoes I'm going to be growing this year. It's actually only ready in 57 days, so it's an early producer. It's an indeterminate variety, and I'm really excited to have it in my garden again. Now, the final variety of tomato I wanted to mention in this cherry category is actually not a cherry tomato. It's actually a currant tomato, which is a totally different species of tomato, but it's similar enough for its small size. I thought I would lump it in with these. So it has pale yellow fruits with a super sweet flavor, and it's reported to have the highest sugar content of any tomato, supposedly twice as sweet as standard tomatoes. It has huge yields in large clusters, and because it is a currant variety, a different species, it has like a wide sprawling growth habit that I think is typical more of the husk tomatoes and the wild tomatoes. So I might cordon it off with my husk tomatoes in a different section of the garden just to contain it. It is ready in 75 days, and it is an indeterminate variety, and of course I did buy it from Baker Creek. So transitioning now into my paste tomato varieties. I did grow one variety of paste tomato last year, and that was the Martino's Red. And although it was very productive, disease-free, convenient to harvest because it was a determinate variety, didn't require any staking, I just was not blown away with the flavor. It was just very plain tasting. It didn't have the best flavor. So this year I really wanted to focus on growing canning paste type tomatoes for fantastic flavor. And a lot of the most heirloom, the most gourmet varieties of paste tomatoes are actually indeterminate. So they will require staking. It will require a little bit more effort, but I think it'll be more worth my time and more worth the garden space to grow if it can really fulfill my culinary needs here. So the first variety I want to share with you in that heirloom paste tomato category is the Ukrainian Purple tomato. The Ukrainian Purple tomato is also known as Purple Russian, and it is a Ukrainian heirloom from Irma Henkel in Ukraine. It is a reliable purpley black plum variety that has meaty, sweet, rich flavor. We'll see if it has that smoky umami flavor that a lot of the purple tomatoes have. It's reported to be crack resistant, and because it's crack resistant and also tolerates cooler temperatures down to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, it's supposed to produce late into the season. So I think that'll be something that might be actually more advantageous, is to have my paste tomato harvest spread out throughout the year rather than all at once. That way you don't have to torture yourself with canning over one weekend. You can spread out the burden that way. And so it is ready in 80 days. It's an indeterminate variety. It will require staking, but I'm really excited to have the Purple Ukrainian in my collection, and I did buy this from Seed Savers. The next paste tomato I want to mention is the orange banana. The orange banana has a reputation that precedes itself. It is known to be the finest paste tomato for making sauces ever, which you would think it's a little unusual because it's of course a beautiful orange tomato, but it is supposed to have the finest flavor. It's a Russian heirloom, popular for sauce. It has a sweet, sprightly flavor reminiscent of Sungold, but with more diversity and more depth of flavor that gives a vivid, fruity complexity to sauces. So I'm really excited to see see if this one lives up to all the hype. It's ready in only 55 to 65 days, so it's an early producer. That's fantastic. And it is another indeterminate paste tomato variety, which I did buy from True Love. Now, I want to briefly mention 2 paste tomatoes that I don't have with me today, but I will have to order because I simply forgot. One is the cream sausage, which is an American heirloom bred by Tom Wagner. And this one is a determinate variety, so it doesn't require staking, but it's supposed to be a prolific producer of these creamy yellow-white sausage paste type tomatoes. And they're supposed to have a very sweet, mild, smooth flavor, slightly acidic and tangy. Ready in 75 to 80 days. So the reason I really want to have all these different varieties of paste tomatoes is so that I can use them in Indian curries to give different nuances to each different type of curry. So for example, I think with the purple tomatoes that are supposed to have that smoky depth of flavor, that would really work well in something like a dal makhani, whereas this cream sausage, which is supposed to have this really mild sweet flavor, I think that would work really well in something like a navratan korma. So I really think that having this bouquet of different paste tomatoes can be really nice for cooking different types of Indian masalas. And the last paste variety I wanted to mention is the Opalka. It is a Polish heirloom with elongated red fruits. It's reputed to be one of the best canning plum tomatoes, so it serves the purpose of being that classic red canning plum tomato, but it's supposed to have extra excellent flavor and very few sweet seeds, and it's supposed to be prolific even in hot weather, which it does get very, very hot here. Ready in 80 to 90 days, and it is indeterminate, and both the cream sausage and the Opalka are available at Seed Savers. Now, finally, let's move on to the largest category of tomatoes I have, which is, of course, the beefsteak tomatoes, what a lot of people, it's kind of the crown jewel of so many of our vegetable gardens. And I'm excited to share with you today, I think a classic that so many of us will be growing in all of our gardens, and that is the Brandywine Pink, the Sudduth strain. So this is the classic ultimate beefsteak with deep, rich vinous flavor, that wine-like flavor. This one was obtained by tomato collector Beten Kinsberry of Big Tomato Gardens from Doris Sudduth Hill, whose family had grown it for over 100 years in Tennessee. So it has a long history in the United States, and it's supposedly the finest beefsteak tomato. And I had kind of a life-changing experience eating this last year. I didn't realize really how good a tomato could taste until I bit into one of these. It was the favorite of my beefsteaks that I grew last year. And so I had to simply grow it from seed. I think I was put off growing it from seed last time, and I just wanted to pick up a nursery start because a lot of people do report that it can be harder to grow. I think that is potentially the case in the East Coast, where they have much more humid, wet summers, and it can be harder to fend off diseases. Things like tomato hornworm, which we don't have here at all. But here in the Pacific Northwest, because we have such dry, hot summers and lack of pests, actually this matured for me fantastically. And I'm looking forward, hoping it's not just beginner's luck, looking forward to having it in my garden again. Now this next one, I'm excited to try, but I don't know exactly how it's going to work out. This one is the Thornburn terracotta. It's an heirloom introduced in 1893 by James Thornburn of New York, and it's supposed to have an earthy, fruity beefsteak flavor with beautiful copper coloring with green streaks. So, I mean, it's really just known to be a beautiful, beautiful tomato. And it's one of the first beefsteaks to ripen. It's ready in 70 to 80 days. It is an indeterminate, so it will require staking. And of course, I got it from Baker Creek. Now, I've heard mixed things about this one. Some people say it's really amazing. Some people say it's kind of mediocre, but there's only one way to find out, and that's to grow it. The next one I want to mention, I haven't heard too much about, but I read the description and I just had to buy it. So this is the Great White. It is an heirloom with creamy white fruits, and it's supposed to have a very unique fruity flavor. So according to Rare Seeds, the Great White is a mixture of fresh cut pineapple, melon, and guava. Now I'm reading that and I'm thinking, is that even possible? Well, it is possible because certain fruits can have the same phenolic compounds as other fruits, and so a strawberry can take on the taste of a grape. So it is possible that this does have all those tropical flavors in it, but if it's, you know, half as good as that description, I'll be ecstatic to have this one in my garden. Now the next one I have that's completely new in my garden is the Aunt Ruby's German Green. So this is an heirloom from Ruby Arnold of Tennessee that was brought into the Seed Savers collection. It's supposed to be exceptionally sweet with a spicy, acidic bite. It has a bright yellow-green flesh and it's marbled with pink when ripe. So just a beautiful addition to our rainbow of beefsteaks here. It's ready in 85 days. It is an indeterminate, and I'm excited to try this one just based on its excellent reputation. Briefly, I just want to mention the 2 varieties of beefsteaks that I'll be growing again this year from the tomato seeds I bought last year. So first I have this one. This is the Pineapple Tomato from Baker Creek. It is an heirloom from Kentucky, and it's supposed to have a fruity and exceptionally sweet taste with low acid. It's a beautiful yellow orange with red marbling, ready in 85 days, and it is an indeterminate variety. Now I'm regrowing this year, and I don't really know if I had the best cultural practices to appreciate the flavors of this one, so I want to give it another try. I did notice that it was definitely less acidic and more sweet, but I don't know if I picked up on any fruity nuances, and I'm excited to give it another try and really see if I can't bring out better flavor. This one I'm really excited to grow again. I really enjoyed having this one in my garden last year. It is the Cherokee Purple, a classic heirloom that so many of us grow, an heirloom variety from Tennessee that's actually said to originate with the Cherokee Native Americans. These beautiful, just gorgeous purple maroon fruits, ready in 77 days and indeterminate, and I certainly did pick up on the smoky umami nuances of this tomato, and I'm really excited to have it in my garden again. I think eventually I do want to do a comparison of all the different black purple tomatoes, so I want to put this one up against the Black Krim and the Paul Robeson, which are the other 2 purpley beefsteaks that have a fantastic reputation. But this year I'm kind of already up to my ears in tomato seeds, so that's all I'm growing this year for beefsteak tomatoes. Now let's talk about tomatillos, because I have never grown them before and I don't know if they'll stay in my garden. Some people don't like them, some people love them, and I just wanted to give it a try and see if I couldn't make some fantastic salsa verdes and come up with something else to do with all of them. So the first one I have to share with you is the Tomatillo Malinalco. It is an heirloom tomatillo from Malinalco, Mexico. It has yellow elongated fruits and a sweet tart flavor, and it's supposed to be more sweet than the typical tomatillos. Now this one is reported to have some of that musky, funky undertone when it's consumed fresh, but it's supposed to mellow down when it's cooked. And it also has hollow fruit that's reminiscent of bell peppers, so it could potentially be stuffed, which is pretty interesting. Ready in 70 days, and it is an indeterminate. I'm excited to try it because it's supposed to have just a little bit of an improvement on the typical tomatillo. The next tomatillo I have to share with you is the purple tomatillo. Again, this one is supposed to be much sweeter and have a fruity flavor compared to the green tomatillos. It was collected in Coban, Guatemala by the Baker Creek Seed Company, and it has, I think, a better application for eating fresh. It has a very long growing season that can produce into fall, and it's also very heat loving. Tomatillos and husk tomatoes generally tend to be, but of course it does have also that sprawling growth habit, and I have heard that it can sucker aggressively. It's ready in 70 days and indeterminate, and of course I got it from Baker Creek. Now the final husk tomato variety I have to present with you today is Aunt Molly's Ground Cherry. So Aunt Molly's Ground Cherry is actually a Polish heirloom from 1837 with a very sweet, reportedly pineapple flavor. It's probably the most popular ground cherry. Even among those that don't love husk tomatoes, people really do report loving this one. I think it's supposed to have less of a funky flavor, more of just a very sweet, fruity flavor. has a high pectin content, which can make it great for jams. Ready in 65 to 70 days, and it is indeterminate from Baker Creek. Now the next category of vegetables I want to share with you guys today are peppers, because I do love peppers. I use them in all my cooking. I've used maybe a pepper every day, so I really had to have a big variety and a large amount of pepper plants to grow. So I'm really excited to share this one with you today. This one is the Chervna Chuskha. So this is a classic Slavic roasting variety. It's used to make the condiment Aviar. Is that Aviar? I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's a very popular Slavic condiment. And this one is a Bulgarian heirloom. And I was told that this is the sweetest of the sweet peppers. So I'm really excited because I love sweet. And this one comes recommended by Jacques from Epic Gardening. And I did buy it at Seed Savers. I don't even think I've seen it available most other places. So I was excited to find this one. The next one I want to mention is actually a regrow. So I did grow these last year with marginal success because I didn't really sow it in time. I didn't sow it soon enough, and I also didn't transplant it soon enough. So it kind of got off to a double bad start. But I'm excited to try it again and to compare it head to head with the Chervna Chuskha. This is the Ajvarski. It's an heirloom Macedonian variety. It's supposed to have superior quality for roasting. It's used for that traditional Bulgarian relish, the Aviar. I'm really excited to try it again and to see if I can't get that sweet flavor, and if I can make the condiment, I will give it a try. And I got this from Baker Creek. The next variety of pepper that I want to mention is the Golden Treasure pepper. The Golden Treasure is an heirloom Italian frying pepper, and it's supposed to have a distinct golden pepper taste. All these golden peppers are supposed to taste just to have their own unique flavor, and it's supposed to be exceptionally sweet, similar to the next variety I'm going to present. So I'm going to do a head-to-head comparison of these two. But I'm really excited to try this one, and of course I got it from Seed Savers. So the next one I wanted to compare the Golden Treasure to is this one. And this is the Gatherer's Gold. The Gatherer's Gold is actually a modern open pollinated variety from Frank Morton from Oregon State University. So this was bred from a hybrid, and it was then subsequently stabilized. So it's an open pollinated modern variety. So it's not yet an heirloom because it hasn't been around long enough, but if you did collect the seeds, it would grow true to seed, which I think is really interesting. This one is supposed to be superbly sweet, prolific, and early ripening with brilliant orange skins. As you can see, it's golden, Gatherer's Gold, and I'm really excited to compare it head to head with Golden Treasure because they're supposed to be very similar in taste. Now the next one I have is the Petit Marseillais. So this Petit Marseillais pepper is a French heirloom from Provence. It has a very slight spiciness, but it's supposed to have a super deep, rich pepper flavor, slightly less sweet, but exceptionally rich. Beautiful golden yellow fruit with that crinkle cut appearance. Perfect for salsas and also useful for stuffing. And I got this one from True Love. The last one I'm growing this year is the Jimmy Nardello. This is a regrow from me. I did grow it last year, and I think a lot of us have this in our gardens every single year. It is an Italian-American heirloom from southern Italy, and it's supposed to be notable for its sweet, rich, fruity flavor. It's supposed to be very prolific and early maturing, and it's reported to have an apple-like flavor. I don't know if I picked up on that when I grew it last year, but I'm excited to give it another try and see if I can't. It did have a great flavor. I remember that. So this is ready in 80 to 90 days, and it was collected by Seed Savers, but I bought mine from Baker Creek. A quick word about what I want to grow next year. I didn't pick it up this year either because I forgot or I didn't want to place another order, but I did want to try out the Belle of Lebanon. I think I heard about that on a YouTube video, and it was supposed to have just a really strong, rich flavor superior to other bell peppers, and it is a Lebanese heirloom I'm really interested in. That's available at HR Seeds. And I also want to try the Turkish heirloom, the Wchyee peppers, and those are supposed to have a really fantastic spicy flavor but without the heat, and I'm really interested in that, and that it's very prolific and early, also ready in 55 days, and that one is available at Baker Creek. So the next category I want to talk about today are our spicy peppers, if I can find them. So the next category I want to talk about are our spicy peppers, and this is my first year growing spicy peppers, and I have to mention that I'm not a chili head. You're not going to see any of the spicy dattles, Carolina Reapers, or ghost peppers here. I mean, jalapenos are quite enough for me, but I really wanted to grow peppers that are unusual and that have a complexity and depth of flavor, and for that I'm really interested in these Aji Peruvian peppers. They're supposed to have a distinctive pungency and a fruity tropical flavor. Some people really love them. I think some chili heads don't love them because they have maybe an unpleasant soapiness, but I'm really interested to give them a try and see if I can't make some really great hot sauces. And they're supposed to have a really long season, so they will take a long time to reach maturity, but they're supposed to be also very heat resistant, which is great for my conditions here. And we do tend to have long summers running all the way into September, so it shouldn't be a problem, and I'm excited to give it a try. The first one I have to mention and share with you today is this pineapple aji, and the pineapple aji is really supposed to have a floral citrus-like flavor with the pineapple aroma. So it hits you with the pineapple aroma, maybe not the pineapple flavor, but I'm really excited to try it. It's 20 to 30,000 Scoville heat units, so I should be able to make something out of it without burning my face off. And I got this from Texas Hot Peppers. The next one I have here is the mango aji. It is supposed to have a spicy passion fruit mango flavor. We'll see if that's true, because that would be quite incredible in a spicy pepper. This one's supposed to have 15 to 30,000 Scoville heat units, so it should be tolerable, around the same range as the pineapple aji, and I got this one also from Texas Hot Peppers. The next one I want to mention is maybe a little bit more common of a variety. A lot of people grow this one, and I'm really excited to try it. It is the Sugar Rush Peach. Now, I'm unsure of how spicy this is going to be because I've heard mixed reports, and it's quite a large range of Scoville heat units are reported, but this one's supposed to have a sweet citrus apricot peach note. It's supposed to be one of the sweeter hot peppers. Some say it's mild, so that could maybe be down in the 50,000 Scoville heat units, but other people say it's quite spicy, up in the 100,000 Scoville heat units. So we'll just have to grow it and find out ourselves, and I got the seeds from Baker Creek. The next one I have to mention is ultra rare variety, and that is the strawberry aji. The strawberry aji, I saw this mentioned in a YouTube video by a pepperhead, and I had to go out and find where it was available because they said it had just an exceptional flavor, an exceptional sweet fruity aji pepper. So I'm really interested in having that sweet spicy complexity, and this is supposed to provide it. Really excited for the strawberry ajis. The next one I want to mention, again going into that category of peppers that have a complexity, a fruity flavor, but not too much spice. I'm getting the habanada, which is of course a mild version of the habanero pepper. Habaneros are known for their very complex fruity flavors, and this variety is supposed to have none of the heat, but with that typical, they say it's an apricot floral flavor. So I'm really excited to give it a try. It should be mild, and it is from Baker Creek. Now the last variety I have to try, I have no expectations for this one, so we'll also see how this goes. It is the sweet dattel. The sweet dattel, again, is the mild version of the hot dattel, which is supposed to be one of the most spicy, like blow your face off peppers ever. But this one's supposed to have the fruity, tangy chinensis variety flavor without the heat. Again, I got this from Texas Hot Peppers. Really excited to give it a try. And The next variety of vegetables we have to cover today are eggplants, and I don't grow a huge variety of them, but I do think I have a very curated selection. So let's start with this one is completely new to my garden this year, and it is the Prosperosa eggplant. The Prosperosa is an heirloom from Tuscany. It's supposed to be highly regarded for its tender flesh, meaty, mild flavor, and it has a really large size, unlike some of the others. It has a really fat form, so I think it'll be really nice for slicing and frying and putting into an eggplant parmesan. It has gorgeous deep purple skins with like a very ribbed, whimsical appearance, and I got these seeds from Territorial. It's a gourmet variety of eggplant traditionally grown in a lot of local Italian home gardens, so excited to try that one. It's been on my list for a long time. The next one I have to share, this one is actually a regrow, and it's the Rosa Bianca eggplant. I did have some success with this, but just like my peppers, I did think I sowed them a little bit too late. The Rosa Bianca is a Sicilian heirloom variety. It's supposed to have a really mild, creamy taste with no bitterness, and the fruits are just gorgeous. They are small fruits with lavender blushing over a white teardrop-shaped fruit, and it's supposed to be a chef's favorite for its gourmet flavor. And I got mine from Baker Creek. I'm really excited because I think the small shape will be perfect for like a roasted vegetable ratatouille. Now the next two varieties of eggplants are completely new to me. It comes from Baker Creek, and they've really gone to the lengths to go and find out these fine Japanese varieties of eggplants that I think will be a really great addition to our palettes. So the first one I have to share with you is this one. That is the Nagaoko Kinchaku, and this one is an obsidian purple eggplant. It's supposed to be a rare Japanese heirloom, and it's really known to be the sweetest eggplant. So I see sweet, I see sweetest. I put it in my cart. I got this one from Baker Creek, and I'm really excited to try it. The next one is supposed to be a Japanese heirloom with a great reputation. This one is supposedly highly sought after in Japanese markets. It is the Satama Ao Daimaru. It is an apple green eggplant variety. It's known to be a culinary treasure in Japan. It's a traditional variety that's grown in the Saitama prefecture since the early Meiji period, so a long history and a really coveted variety for a long time. It's supposed to have a really dense, creamy texture that's a highly gourmet choice, and of course I got it from Baker Creek. So I love to use eggplants to make like a Japanese miso eggplant braised miso dish, and I'm really excited to give those two varieties a try. Although I think with really fine eggplants, they actually just steam them and dip them in like a little bit of soy sauce, and I think that would be a great way to eat those as well. So next, let's briefly touch on summer squash because I'm not growing anything new. I'm just growing very typical old varieties from seeds that I bought last year just to use them up. And because I have squash bugs, I'm just trying to reduce the number of squash that I grow. And also I want to make sure this year that I space them out a lot, that I have only one plant growing in one area, just so that it's a little bit easier to identify and kill the squash bugs. So the first variety I have to share here, this is the Costata Romanesco. This is an Italian heirloom variety that's very recognizable for its ribbed outer texture. Costata does mean rib in Latin. It's less productive and slower growing than a lot of the other hybrid cultivars, but it's really known to be the best for its flavor. So it's supposed to have a rich, nutty flavor, especially when you harvest it at the right stage. I did let some of these go on too long and get too large, but it's supposed to be harvested just like pictured with the blossom still attached, and that's really when it's supposed to have the best flavor. It's a traditional Italian heirloom that's very popular and expensive at Italian markets, and it's also a really great producer of heavy male blossoms, which of course people do regard as a delicacy itself. And I got this one from Botanical Interests. And, you know, even though people say that the heirlooms don't produce as much, I just feel like summer squash is so overproductive to begin with that you don't even miss the ones that you don't see because you have so much to keep up with anyway. And that is definitely the case with this next variety, because I still have this one in my freezer from the crop that I grew last year, and this is the Crookneck Early Golden. It's a pre-Columbus heirloom variety that's been favored by gardeners for generations. It has a sweet, nutty, buttery flavor with a wonderful meaty texture, and it's supposed to retain its texture when frozen, so that's great because I do have a ton in the freezer. But it's supposed to be far superior to the supermarket varieties. I don't know if I noticed that, but I will grow it again and see if I do. It is from Baker Creek and it's extremely productive. So excited to have this again in my garden. Just a few dotted around the garden, nothing crazy. Now the next variety is a one I didn't have much success with cucumbers last year, and I think the reason is twofold. First of all, if you have a really hot, oppressive, sunny summer, if you have heat waves in the upper 90s to 100s, I've heard that that can cause cucumbers to go bitter. And I've also heard that irregular watering, if you're not on top of your watering, can also cause your cucumbers to go bitter. And I think those two things might be linked. The oppressive sun just dries out the soil more quickly. So I really did not have success with my cucumbers last year. I didn't get to eat a single one. It was terribly inedibly bitter. I did try this Space Master cucumber, and it's supposed to be favorable for its small growth habit. It doesn't require trellising. It grows a bushy form. Maybe I'll try this one again this year, but I'm kind of more interested in trying this really gourmet variety. And this is the Bet Alpha cucumber. It's a 1930s heirloom from an Israeli kibbutz farm. It's very popular in the Mediterranean for its fine, sweet flavor and for its high yields. The skin is spineless and tender and not bitter, and it is supposed to be heat tolerant. We'll see how heat tolerant it is, but if it's noted to be heat tolerant, I think it might be a little bit better adapted to my environment. And of course, it is from the Mediterranean as well, so that's a good sign. It's supposed to be early and productive, being both parthenocarpic and gynoecious, which means it produces only female flowers, ready in just 55 days. So excited to do more experimenting with cucumbers and see if I can't get finally a good harvest of cucumbers this year. Now I also want to briefly touch on melons because I'm no melon expert. This is my first year trying my hand at melons, so we'll see how it goes. And we were just speaking of Israel, and here we are back in Israel because this is the Haogen melon, Haogen, an Israeli heirloom perfume melon that's held in high esteem for its creamy, sweet green flesh, and it's supposed to be much richer than your typical honeydew. It's supposed to be succulent and honey sweet with a crisp citrus tang, smooth skin with no netting, and it's supposed to be early maturing, ready in 75 to 80 days, and very, very productive. So it said that the main crop matures over a month-long period and that a new crop of smaller fruits continues to develop until frost. So this is many people's favorite melons. I'm really interested in it. It's apparently very coveted and it was hard to get for a long period of time, and now it's readily available and it comes to us from Seed Savers. Now this next variety, this might be the most popular fine gourmet variety of melon ever. It's the Petit Gris de Bran. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. It is the most highly reputed heirloom French Cherokee variety. It is supposed to be the champagne of melons, discovered nearly 400 years ago in the Bishop of Rain's garden. It has been treasured by French gardeners ever since. The name means little gray, referring to its gray skins, but of course it does have that cantaloupe-like orange flesh interior. It has a powerful fragrance and sweet, richly flavored flesh that has hints of caramel and brown sugar. Doesn't that sound divine? So it's supposed to have a flavor unlike any modern melon we've ever had. Ready in 85 days, and I did get this from Baker Creek. Really excited to give it a try. And just one more in the melon category. I picked this up from Adaptive Seeds because they said it was slightly more early maturing, but I'm not sure how much more early it really needs to be for us here, but I'm excited to also give it a try. It's called Super Precoq de Rouc, and it's another French Charentaise variety. of the typical cantaloupe, and it's long been considered the best of the best, and it's supposed to be simply a little bit more early maturing variety of the Sharon tastes. 70 to 80 days, and I got these from Adaptive Seeds.